Guys, I have no idea what I'm doing. I've been trying to make a mask for a while now, but just can't seem to grasp it. I've tried making it from scratch, going off a paper mache cast of my face. I even painted over a Halloween mask when I was 16. The best I've ever done was this paper mask I built around a mannequin head, but it still wasn't good enough. When I decided that I was going to return to making videos, I thought that it was about time to start looking for a pattern. I found this mask pattern off Etsy from Let's Make Geek Stuff, who also has a YouTube channel by the same name. I will link both in the description below. I will be using their pattern for the base of my mask. I sketched out a few ideas and went with this one. I wanted the mask to have swirls and spots, so I added markings that cats have on their foreheads. With this design, only the eyes and ears will need changing from the mask base. I also decided to add fluff to the cheeks to balance out the ears. I thought about how I could cover the mask. Obviously I could paint it, but I thought about gluing fake feathers over it. I also had scraps of black fabric left over from my coat, which could also work to tie the two together. Pattern file, I had to find a way to print the pattern out. After asking around, I managed to get someone to print it for me. While waiting for that, I watched the accompanying YouTube video to familiarise myself with it. And let me tell you, the both of us were very invested. The material list for this is 6mm foam sheets for the base, adhesive and hot glue to stick everything together, and foam clay to fill in the cracks. Tools will be a cutting mat, a Dremel, a mask, and some safety glasses. I also got some magnets as I wanted the ears to be removable, so I can still wear hats with them on. I cut out the pattern, then transferred them onto the foam by tracing an outline using a silver pen with opaque ink. I tried to fit the shapes in as close as possible to reduce waste and give myself enough spare foam to play with later in case I wanted to change anything. Over a cutting board, I then began to slice the foam using a craft knife. The blade went through smoothly, so smoothly in fact I accidentally went too far a couple times while cutting. But since I had spare foam, I could just recut them. The pattern is very clear, which I am thankful for, and the shapes that make it up are simple and easy to cut. For someone like me who's inept with blades, I found the motion of following the lines fluid. There wasn't really a time I struggled to follow them, like when I have cutting slightly more complicated shapes in the past. With the pieces cut, it was time to pack everything up and move outside. I read the instructions for the Dremel and attached a sandpaper head to it. Since using it is basically a faster way to sand something down, I made sure to wear a mask. Even though I'm outside and the wind is picking up, I didn't want to risk inhaling any foam powder or adhesive fumes. Trust me, my lungs are weak enough. My goal was to hurry up and get it all sanded and glued before the English weather decided to live up to its reputation. I placed some cardboard down underneath everything so cleanup would be easier afterwards. I wanted to prevent bits of foam from falling onto the floor through the gaps. I played the YouTube tutorial in front of me on my laptop and followed along, though I did have to keep pausing it to give myself time to catch up. The first piece I sanded was the nose. Following along, I cut and folded the sides before squishing it to give it a slight curve. I sanded the connection between the two pieces until they fit together while simultaneously catching anything that almost fell while the wind decided to rearrange my workspace. I applied the adhesive to the wall of the foam and spread it out evenly with a lolly stick. I quickly realised that you had to glue both sides individually and then stick them together. You also have to wait a little bit or the pieces will slide out of place before the glue had time to dry. The small lines perpendicular to the outline on each piece were reference points, which helped a lot. They line up with the pieces that they're supposed to be glued with. Working outwards from the nose, the face gradually appeared. I decided to glue the eyelids in and figure out where and what shape the eyes will be once the mask is built. Since the eyes I want to do a slit, I need to be 100% on where they sit, otherwise I wouldn't be able to see out of them. The larger the pieces got, the more tricky it was to attach them, as I had to keep pushing the foam back into place while actively gluing the other side. With the occasional gusts of wind picking up, I hastened my approach for the last few pieces. While the adhesive dried, I bent the walls of the mask the best I could into a head shape. I considered attaching the ears here, but decided to keep them separate for now. To further shape the mask, I bought a hairdryer outside, plugged it into a very long extension lead, turned it on and began to heat up the mask. In the tutorial, a heat gun is used, and I'm not too sure if a hairdryer equates to one of those, especially one on a windy day, but I continued nonetheless. Moving inside, I marked out where I wanted the eyes to be cut. I followed the line where the pieces connected and expanded above and below it. With a black pen, I doodled some spots to get an idea of how they'd look. I cut out the first eye in one piece and flipped it over to the second one. I traced a shape in an attempt to get the eyes as even as possible. The foam moved while cutting, which made it tricky to get the blade through, but not impossible. The result is a very jagged cut, which I had to sand smooth. Since there was a storm upon us, I didn't want to go back outside to Dremel and was too impatient to wait, so just opened my window and cleared my desk. As well as sanding the slits smooth, I also made them thinner on each side. Once they were even enough, I turned to the embellishments I wanted to add. I thought about carving the markings into the foam, but quickly realised that I didn't have enough control over the Dremel to make it look good, so stuck with the original plan of painting. I hoovered all the foam dust and cut some foam out from the cheeks. To add a little dimension, each one will be made out of 2 bits of foam stuck on top of each other, with one slightly bigger than the other. I had a lot of trouble with the ears, so held the mask up to a screen with the original drawing on it and zoomed in until the two were roughly the same size. I then upped the brightness and traced the shape of the ears onto paper very carefully. I cut out the main shape like normal and actually used my sewing scissors to cut the more fiddly bits. The ears just kept not looking right, and after numerous failed attempts, I threw the ears aside and moved on to improving the mask. Since my face is small, the mask was way too big and didn't fit right. The outer ring was especially too large, so I cut triangles out of a couple areas and glued them shut. I pressed foam clay into the gaps of the mask and did my best to smooth them. While that was solidifying, I messed around with the bit I had left over in my hand and made some swirls to test on a piece of foam. Since the foam looked like it would just come right out of the gaps with little force, I first tried to cut, then gently sand the foam. This did basically nothing, so I returned to the Dremel where I created so much dust that you would have thought I dropped the mask in sugar. After sanding off all the excess foam, I brushed the powder off using a makeup brush and then, once again, busted out the hoover. Once the weather was nice, I took the mask outside to spray it with Plasti Dip, which is a protective coating. I also covered the white lines, which allowed me to see the shape of the mask better. It's a good thing I'm covering the mask with the fabric left over from making the coat, because this was not a smooth surface. I noticed that the eyes weren't looking too great, so drew a curve on paper to use as a stencil. I cut the eyes slightly larger than desired so I could shape them more finely with foam clay. Once again, I had to try and make the eyes even, and for my own safety, use scissors to cut out the eyes. With nothing else to do, I went back to the ears. This time with a simpler design. I cut 2 pieces for each ear out and glued them together before rounding them out. I added extra foam clay to thicken out the bottom so it would be wide enough to hold the magnets. I recut the cheeks while waiting for the clay to harden before sanding everything down. After cleaning up, I glued on the cheeks. Initially they were one piece, but I added another to thicken them. Since I wanted the magnets to be hidden, I marked around the magnets and cut holes into the underside of the ears where the foam was thick enough to fully envelop them. I then cut the same holes into the underside of the head. Once the glue had dried, I placed the ears on top of the head and built the front in an attempt to make them look more natural. I worked quickly so the ears wouldn't dry stuck to the head. Next I cut holes just under the eyes so I could make different expressions and eyes in the future. Once all that was done, it was time to take it outside once more to be sprayed. In between coats I wandered around outside. Look at this ladybug that flew onto me.
Daytime? I'm Marinette. Just a normal girl.
Now the mask is starting to take shape. I glued the lining material on with a hot glue gun starting from the centre outwards. I applied the glue and pressed the material into shape, pulling it smooth. I cut the excess fabric off and cut out the eyes while I had access to them. The fabric for the outside of the mask is leftover black minky scraps I kept from my coat. It is a lovely dark colour and is very black as opposed to blue or brown black that I see a lot. I also worked my way outwards here, taking my time to make sure it is applied as smoothly as possible. My only goal was to get rid of the bunching. I glued a section, pulled the fabric and smoothed it with my hands. Yep, it was very hot. When I got to the ends, I folded the outer fabric around the side of the foam and glued them down. Getting the cheeks to not bunch up was difficult due to the odd shape. To make the front look good, I pulled the fabric over it and folded everything hidden on the back. Using my craft knife, I carefully punched a hole into the fabric over the eyes and cut along them with scissors. I then glued the fabric onto the eyes using hot glue. For the ears, I wrapped fabric around them in the same way. I wanted the mask to look like it was all one piece, so matched the direction of the fibres to the mask. This is the current state of the mask. I did take a quick break to mess with it, a little, as I realised that it had the effect of those sequin pillows that change colour depending on which way you brush them. Now it's time to add the spots. I went through a few potential methods of application, such as gluing on different fabric or painting them on. After testing, I found my best option to be diluting acrylic paint in water and brushing it over tape. I drew the shapes onto paper and then traced the outline onto some washi tape, one for each side where the pattern was mirrored. The smaller the pieces, the more difficult they were to cut and place right. Furthermore, bits that were too small wouldn't work as the paint would bleed under the tape slightly. I tried to add subtle swirls mixed into the spots, and I did sneak a little heart into the forehead because I'm only human. I didn't want it to be too busy, so kept the details to the forehead. The cheeks were given a large ink looking mark to frame the face. Because the tape was thin, I stuck multiple cuts together while creating the bigger markings. Before painting the face, I mixed a large amount of paint and water in a ramekin. I needed to have enough to do the whole face as I wanted the ratio to be consistent so that the face was all one colour. I carefully applied the paint by dabbing the mixture onto the fabric. I did have to constantly press the tape down as it kept getting lifted up. While doing the nose, I decided to leave the centre black and frame it so it looked like a cat nose. I did this so the lines had something to connect to. To keep where the fabric meets the eyes looking seamless, I left a black line around the eyes. I also left black around the outside of the mask to act as a border. Ooh, moment of truth! Luckily for me, the tape worked really well actually. After leaving the mask a few hours to dry, I carefully lifted the stencils off. I wanted the eyes to be white, so traced a shape onto a plastic paper type material which has holes in it. I held the mask to a lamp to get an accurate shape. I cut the eyes out and pressed them into the holes. Because it was such a tight fit, it was tricky to get them in, but at least they stay put without needing glue. Now that the mask was done, I wanted to make a few bits to test the magnets in the mask. The first thing I made was a monocle out of some foam and this shiny paper I found in my cupboard. I then made some cheeks by cutting out an oval of foam and painting over it. This was inspired by the guy in the Amazing Circus, because I watched episode 6 while waiting for the paint to dry. He goes, shut up. Let's try it on. Pretty good. Wearing the mask is alright. I am very claustrophobic in it, but no one needs to know. My favourite part of it is the patterns. My least favourite part would have to be the ears, as they fly off if I look around too fast. So I need to make sure I walk around gracefully, like the lady I am. The side parts also help by holding the wig back. I know this looks crazy, I can't fix it, it's falling apart. The elastic is tight, but the mask keeps dropping down for some reason. When I'm not wearing the wig, it's too loose and won't even stay on my head. But that's a problem for another day. Thank you for watching. I'm gonna go make something else now. Bye bye.